This, it gets across a few of the principles that Amanda's been talking about. So if you imagine that's my void at the bottom, and these are 5 different situations, 5 different things are going to happen to my void. This is my void in the 60s, okay? So you've got beautiful green hills at the top. You've got rain falling on the beautiful green hills. The rain falls on the hills, and obviously it soaks down into the ground through the vegetation. It makes its way slowly down through the strata into the subgrade, where it gets cleaned, and my void is quite happy because it can enjoy the view and doesn't have to wear its wellies. My void in 2016, we know that weather patterns have been changing. You know, Donald Trump can't deny that. It's raining heavier, it's raining more frequently, and it's raining for longer periods of time.
This is a problem with the cold.
Yeah, all right, I could deny it. In addition to the weather patterns that are changing, we're developing more. As Amanda says, we've got to be pragmatic. We've got to build more housing. We've got to, you know, people like to drive cars. People, you know, need to ride bikes. So we do have to provide some kind of hard landscaping. So in this situation, some herberts put a car park at the top of the hill. So the rain that's falling heavier and faster and more frequently lands on top of the car park. It's got nowhere to go. So all of a sudden, despite the fact that this guy hasn't done anything different, he's getting flooded. So those 2 things, weather patterns changing and increased urban development, is one of the reasons for flooding. So what are the answers? First of all, the one thing that we promote as Marshalls is if you're going to build a car park, the obvious thing to do is to make it using permeable paving. So it looks like block paving, but when the water lands on it, the water soaks down between the blocks into a specially prepared subbase. It can be stored there until it either soaks down into the ground quite naturally, just as it would on this example, or if it can't soak into the ground, if it's a clay subbase, for example, it'll be fed away at a controlled rate. It's all about slowing the flow. It's all about holding it back and releasing it at a controlled rate into surrounding water courses. That's our solution. There are loads of other ways of making permeable surfaces. So if on your own home driveway, permeable paving might not be your first choice. You might just use gravel, plastic grids, you know, hold the gravel together, stop it spreading out. There are loads of different ways of doing it, but the optimum choice is to make sure that whatever hard surface you put down is permeable. The other option, and you know, one of the methods that you've been talking about specifically is natural flood management. In this example, we've got the same car park again, but some clever engineers have carved the landscape up into, in this example, they're swales. So it's a very rudimentary example, but the water falls on this, the rain falls on this, and it falls down, and before it gets to the bottom of the valley, it's collected in these swales. These are just acting like attenuation ponds, basically. So the water's soaked into the ground here, it's been slowed down. This is brilliant because it provides all sorts of benefits. It provides amenity benefits, it's a nice thing to look at. You've got all the wildlife, you know, attracts all the wildlife, it's a nice place to go and visit. But you can't park cars on it, you can't drive bikes, and you can't push wheelchairs and pushchairs over it. So it's a compromise between soft suds and hard suds. We always say put as much green space as you possibly can into an area, and where you can't put that, use a permeable surface. This is the one that I know annoys you, so I've got to put this in the end. There are situations, if you've got a busy A road, or if you've got a motorway, for example, you can't put permeable paving on it, can't put gravel on it. So the best thing to do is to use some kind of basic channel drainage like this. If you come around this side later on, perhaps, you can see that this is a combined curb and drainage system. It's a curb, it's got holes in it, and the holes go into an integrated channel. The key thing with this, because this isn't a SuDS measure on its own, this is just collecting the water and transporting it away very quickly. But that's exactly what you want on a motorway. The key thing is to understand that when the water comes out of this, it comes out at a controlled rate, and it should be going into some kind of system like this. So it's using, so basically the water's being transported quickly and safely away, leaving a clean, safe area for us to drive on, and then it's being fed into one of these places where it can be held back, where it can be attenuated and cleaned. So
Which is perfect. I approve of
You're
that.
happy with that? Is that right? Okay.
It just wasn't explained as well on the last video I saw of this.
I get through to the next round. Right, good. So the key thing that we realised that people weren't understanding about, and the thing to take home, if nothing else, is that people, when they get flooded, people come to us and say, if I put permeable paving in, will that stop my house from flooding? And it won't, obviously. This guy in this example, he could put permeable paving down, but he'd have to dig a sub-base as deep as Australia to cope with the amount of water that's going to, it's just not practical, it's not pragmatic. So it's what you do upstream. It's not necessarily the people that are flooding that have got a problem, it's what you do upstream is going to affect people downstream. So taking those principles into account of holding the water back on your ground is absolutely key to this. The final point that I'd just like to make on the front question that we pose is, can SuDS stop floods? Obviously it can't, but it can certainly sort of mitigate the worst effects of it, and that's what we try to do as a business, and that's what we'd like to promote.